And I keep realizing that this is not just about hormones or just about sleep or just about brain and health. It's about everything. It's about mindset. It's about how we feel in relationships. It's about how we feel in our workplace and our confidence. And so I never want those to get too far away from me, because those are really, really important things that help us feel better and help our health span.
I'm Ann Marie McQueen, journalist and proud 50-ish woman, and we are here looking for the true truth in perimenopause, menopause, midlife, and beyond.
Opening our minds to other possibilities is not always easy.
Hotflash Inc.
You're all woman to me. All right, Ann Marie.
Hi there. So just a little intro to the intro. This week I'm interviewing Tamsen Fadal, and I'm going to tell you all about her. Tamsen is the executive producer of the M Factor documentary. That documentary has caught the eye of Dr. Jen Gunter, an obstetrician gynecologist in the US with a large following and a large media presence. And she has been using her platform, The Agenda, to fact check some of the findings, and most recently to point out that the documentary doesn't have continuing medical education accreditation from the Federation of State Medical Boards anymore. Behind the scenes, people are asking me, what do you think? This is a very popular documentary. And so I felt that it was only fair. Tamsen's a journalist, but not even because she's a journalist. I'm a journalist. And I needed to just ask her, what do you think about what Dr. Jen Gunter has been doing? And so I put those questions to her team, and they wrote back and explained that the M Factor Shredding the Silence on Menopause documentary earned continuing medical education accreditation. On October 17th, 2024, the Federation of State Medical Boards hosted a 90-minute live webinar offering continuing medical education credit for healthcare providers. The documentary was featured, followed by a moderated discussion with menopause experts. Due to the limited capacity FSMB had for live registrations, the CME, Continuing Medical Education Credit, was extended to those on the waitlist to access the recorded webinar online. After the live event, it provided access to the recorded webinar for a limited period, and that window closed as scheduled. Accreditation remains intact for all participants, whether live or virtual. The FSMB CME webinar and accreditation concluded on November 21st, 2024. Then they say, we stand by our film and the medical doctors who shared their expertise with us. We recognize that others have different viewpoints. We respect them all, and we look forward to working together to help women live longer, healthier lives. So that is Tamsen's response to Dr. Jen Gunter, who has published several pieces on her Vigenda platform. If you're interested in those, of course, you can go and read what she's saying. But I just wanted to give her a chance to respond to what's out there, because a lot of this stuff isn't happening in the traditional media anymore. And I think it's unfair to have one person writing and then that person doesn't go to Tamsen or Tamsen's team and ask for a comment, which is proper when you're writing about someone. When I do an article and I'm writing about someone, I go to them and I say, here's your chance to respond to the thing I'm going to write about you. And whatever you think of Dr. Jen Gunter, that definitely should be given. That is the proper thing to do. And so that's what's happening here. And on to the next introduction and to what a really great conversation I had with Tamsen. Welcome to the Hotflash Inc. podcast. I'm your host, Ann Marie McQueen. This week I'm speaking to Tamsen Fadal. She's a journalist in New York City and was an anchor on the evening news. She has turned to menopause full-time and has been very prolific, and she published last year the documentary The M Factor, Shredding the Silence on Menopause. She has a book coming out, How to Menopause, in March, and we talk all about this journey that we've kind of both been on in the last 4 years or so, from when you couldn't say menopause to you can say it, and we're hearing it all the time. Tamsen gets personal about how she's felt, what she hears from a whole bunch of other people, her experiences with hormone therapy, and a lot more. How are
Good, good. Nice to see you.
you too? Oh, it was coming. There you are. Hello.
Hey,
We have the same top on.
I love it.
We look like we're mimes.
I know. I love it.
Well, congratulations on everything.
Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate it. How are you?
I'm really good. I've watched your documentary tonight, and I've read your book. I'm really
Thank you.
Yeah, it's really neat to see what you've come out with. How does it feel? Just
Scary. I don't know. I want to keep going. Like I can't, I want to get stuff into more women's hands, like as I realize how many pockets don't have things. So I'm just trying to make sure that, we do that as much as possible. And I can't do it fast enough. I go wake up every morning like, okay, how can we help this community? How can we do that? So I feel like I need like 10 more arms, but
Okay.
I'm trying.
That is so crazy. It's such a, I don't know. I sometimes wonder if that's like a midlife thing or it's just that you start scratching the surface of something like this.
I think I started scratching the surface and I realized like the need that's out there. And when I get asked some of the questions that I think that we all know the answers to, and I realize we don't all know the answers to them, and that this is new information to a lot of people, even though we've been talking about it a lot in the, 4 years or however long it's been now, it makes me just realize that our work is just getting started.
Yeah. How do you deal with that need? Because sometimes I feel like, I'm not equipped sometimes.
I feel like I'm not equipped a lot of the time. It's like one step at a time. I really have to do it one step at a time. And I guess I feel like at the end of the day, if I know, oh wow, 200 more women learned this, or we had another screening where 50 women were at it, or, I talked to somebody on Instagram and she's 35 and now she knows what perimenopause is. Like I try to check those, those moments because I think that every single one matters. And then I also think of the bigger picture, of advocacy and research dollars and how to do that the right way and how to make sure that we're seeing the big picture while we're also, helping people day by day. I think all those things are so important. And I keep realizing that this is not just about hormones or just about sleep or just about brain and health. It's about everything. It's about mindset. It's about how we feel in relationships. It's about how we feel in our workplace and our confidence. And so I never want those to get too far away from me, because those are really, really important things that help us feel better and help our health span.
And I mean, 4 years, I remember that's about, for me, it's like 4.5. And I remember saying, well, I just want everyone to be able to say menopause and not be weird. Well, that's like 100% happening, right? Like
it's happening. Which is really cool, right?
Right? In
I
a
had
short amount of
somebody this
time.
morning, and she said I was talking about it over coffee, and I said, well, it's a perfect topic. So it's nice.
Yeah. And men are talking about it. And I've been on a couple of podcasts with guys that are just interested in finding out about it. Like that's pretty cool. And I'm sure you're probably going to do a lot of podcasts, but you're seeing big male podcasts like Dr. Haber going on them. And it's just,
Yeah,
it's so gratifying to see that part of it.
it is. It really is. It's like very exciting.
Well, were you at all squeamish when you set out on it? Because I remember I was single. I'm still single, but I remember saying to my friends, "Well, this will be the final nail in the coffin for me ever getting married. I've never been married. If I start talking about this all the time." And then I dated a lot, and no one cared. Like I would tell the guys that I was dating, "I'm doing this. I do this. I'm obsessed with this," and no one cared. And I started thinking, okay, like, but were you squeamish?
I was work-wise because I worked in an industry where so I was always trying to like fight for my youth, and so yeah, so that made me really nervous about it. And I think when it came to dating, I was already dating my now husband, but I remember telling him I was like he's like didn't even know what to say. He was just like I don't know what to say about that. So I think it was just one of these like, oh wow, are people gonna think differently of me now? I'm in menopause. People gonna think differently of me now. They think I'm old. I think it was a big part of that mental conversation for me, internal conversation for me.
Well, and how much do you think is the way you think about it, right? Like
Oh yeah, yeah. It
if
is.
you, yeah, how,
It's
yeah.
not us to think about it. It's not how we think about it. It's that how we were taught to think about it. Not even taught to think about it. How we just knew that that wasn't a narrative you discussed. Yeah, I'm very amazed at how far things have come in a short amount of time. And I'm very grateful that these conversations are happening in small groups, in larger groups, on public platforms, in the media. And I think it's because women were like, this is not okay, and started making some noise. And it's just getting louder and louder.
It's also dovetailing with, like, I just feel like how lucky am I to be 54 at this time in the world when
Yeah.
it's like, it seems like
Yeah.
on the heels of everything else, we're not taking it anymore. We're not going quietly. And then
world is appreciating us, like in television and movies. And are you feeling it too?
I'm seeing it a lot. It's funny.
Yeah.
I've seen little clips now of like a pop in of the word menopause, and I went, did they have that plan the whole time? Or are they just saying that now because they know that everyone's talking about it? But I'm so happy that I'm like, this is great because that's the only way. So I always wonder like what came first. But I love it. Yeah, I think it's an incredible time. And I think it's an incredible time to, I don't know, to see where we are now. And then I always wonder like, what is 54 going to look like in 10 years for somebody? And after that, I think it's going to be very, very incredible.
I've noticed that, like pop culturally speaking, the humor is much more sophisticated. Like when it's popping up, like I see it. I like
Yeah.
that show Shrinking, and
It is
the
more
one character she's
sophisticated.
always talking about, like she said, chalupas make me dry. I don't know. Do you watch that show?
I do. I was laughing. I was like, oh
Yeah,
my
right. Like that's
yeah,
funny.
and it's very matter of fact, like it's just in there. And I went, that's great. Yeah,
Yeah.
I thought so too.
Yeah. So it's just like part and parcel of it.
January 13th and 27th, Mitopure ad. If you've listened to this podcast for a while, you know I'm a root cause girl at heart. And when we dive into what makes us function, you get right down to our mitochondria. They are like the battery pack for our cells. That means they're our power source. And don't you want to do a little house cleaning on your power source? Mitopure by Timeline contains a rare postbiotic urothalin A, and it works by promoting a process of cellular cleanup that clears out dysfunctional mitochondria. Mitopure's own testing has shown improvements in energy levels, recovery time, endurance, and more. Timeline is offering 10% off your order of Mitopure. Go to timeline.com/hotflash. That's timeline.com/hotflash.
Anyway, I thought in your book, and you talked about this before, in the newsroom, when you were like, if I fall over, can someone catch me? And I had that in the newsroom, on my print newsroom. I remember looking around and I always felt like I was going to have an aneurysm or something. Like I didn't know, some like vague feeling. It's so
Out of
universal.
control.
And I remember thinking, at least I'm here with all these people and not home alone, and
Yeah.
someone will, take care of it. I don't know. Can you just describe what that feeling is for people?
Yeah, I mean, I would think, everyone we know comes by it differently, but I think for me, the feeling was I don't have control. Like something, I was so, I was embarrassed by it. And then it happened all so fast that I was like, knew something was going to happen, but I didn't know exactly what was going to happen. And so I think that it was like a not control feeling, out of control. And I just couldn't fix it. Do you know what I mean? Like sometimes you can like fix it internally, and I couldn't fix it. I knew that. And I was like, I just have to get my heart calmed down and lay down and cool down. And I think that gave me a lack of confidence because I was like, well, when's that going to happen again? And so I think that that's what the feeling was. I think if I had known what that was, it would have felt different. I would have been like, oh, this is going to pass in 5 minutes. It's going to be okay. Breathe, like know what it is, rationalize what it is. And, but I didn't at the time. After that, I have, and I've had it happen before, again, but I know what it is. And there's a difference there. And that's why I think that education is so pivotal.
Well, no wonder health anxiety is such a big part of it, right?
Oh,
Because you're
right.
just thinking that everything is a giant thing. And you
Yeah.
only can get to the end of perimenopause and sort of know that you're not dying of any of it. That's what you feel like, though.
I know,
that you're not dying.
right?
Yeah. I wonder, you pushed yourself really hard in your career. You talked about all-nighters, and, I pushed myself really hard too. The scrutiny of being on television, I imagine, would be very difficult. Do you ever feel like that stuff, and the stuff that happened to you in your marriage, do you ever feel like that contributed to, because we know it's like a physical, emotional, everything you bring kind of contributes to it.
Yeah, I know. I thought that my physical stuff was a result of my divorce, actually, because I was young. I had no idea perimenopause even existed. So, do I think that? I think me probably not paying a lot of attention to my health because I always thought like someday I will. I think that probably didn't help for sure. I think that, I ran myself ragged. I didn't sleep. I was up early at 2 o'clock in the morning. And then I worked a night shift that, lasted until midnight every night or 11:30 every night. And so, I don't think it helped for sure. And I had to relearn a lot of habits bad habits I had had. And so, yeah, I would say that's why I like the ages of 30 and 35 to be starting to have this conversation, not 40 and 45, because I think 30 and 35 is where you start, having some of these habits that you can look at and be aware of, and then they become the norm, not like this thing I have to do. So I think that it's a bigger deal, and I think it's going to make it a little bit easier, right? Going into
Yeah.
this time, so you're not like, uh-oh, when I hit 42, I'm going to have to weight train and eat more protein and make sure I
Right.
get sleep. And we got this to-do list that makes you equally crazy. So I think if you can start establishing some of those as just lifestyle changes that are going to be smart and better for you, I think that's going to be really, really helpful.
The disconnected, because when I talk to some more, the wise power and wild power red school woman, they think disconnection from our bodies is like a really big component of it, that we all sort of walk around with that thing. Like, I'll do that later. I'll get in touch with myself later. And they're all about the menstrual cycle. I wasn't connected to my menstrual cycle at all. I mean, I got an app in my 40s, like when they came out or whatever, but I didn't. It was like I wasn't connected to what was happening. I don't know. Were you?
Oh gosh, no, I was not connected to anything that was happening. I really was not. I really was not.
Okay. So, sorry. Go ahead.
No, I wish I knew. I wish I knew.
Yeah. Yeah. I actually started paying. They said, I was reading their book and I got really sad because they were talking about the connection, and they said, but if you're gone through menopause, it's not too late. You can start paying attention to the moon and the new moon. And that sounded really crazy and woo woo, but I've started doing it, and like with your energy on the moon, and it's actually, there's something there.
Yeah, that's amazing though. I didn't realize that, and I didn't know. I feel like there's so many things I still am learning every single day,
Okay, so the big to-do list that you talked about, because that's the thing where people are just like, I have to do what, and I have to do what, and I have to cut out what, and I have to add what, and it's like so overwhelming. We'll get to hormone therapy in a minute, but like, what's your advice to someone just tackling that?
Hormone therapy, just the whole to-do list.
No, we'll get to hormone therapy in a minute.
Oh,
I'm just talking about, like, the lifestyle stuff that we know we have to do. It will even make hormone therapy work better.
I don't think it's going to be perfect every day. I mean, I know it's not. I think that for me, I try to just incorporate a little bit. Like, I know I'm not going to be perfect with my protein. I know I'm not going to be perfect with my bedtime. I know I'm not. I try to just incorporate a little bit when I get some of those wins. I like check them off, like, okay, all right, that was good. You feel better. And I try to also see how it makes me feel too, because I'm like you. I could have 100 to-do lists all operating at the same time, and then feel terrible if I can't get it all done. And then I go into a place of paralysis, which is not good either. So I've learned to not put that on myself like I used to. I used to have like the perfect checklist, and it would have to be gone through every day. I can't do that anymore. And then I also think, like, what do you want to do with your time? Like, I'm in my second half, what do all these days look like? And then what's the reason for these things? And if the reason is because I just got to get it done versus because it's going to make you feel better and it's going to make you have 10 more great days. A friend of mine says, like, I'm investing in my tomorrow all the time. And I'm like, I don't know where that quote came from, but he says it. And I was like, I love that quote. So whatever I can do to do that makes me feel really excited.
Someone just wrote to me, someone I know here, and she wrote and said, I just cannot exercise. I feel too terrible to exercise. And, I'm thinking of how to answer, because what I want to say is, I know, but if you exercise, you'll feel better. I get it. To get the energy, I promise you'll feel better. What do you say?
I guess I always try to say, like, this is where I was, this is where I am, and here's what I did in between. So there's that hope. I don't want people to go into this like, oh my gosh, I'm dreading this stage of my life. It's going to be awful. I had in 1 week 2 women in their mid-30s. I'm so scared about this time in life. It's going to be awful. And I went, wait a minute, we're not having this conversation so we're scared. We're having this conversation so you're not. And so I think that I've tried to kind of show both ends of that extreme. And you're right, like, it's not easy. It's just not easy to tackle all those things at the same time, and to not be afraid at what we're all talking about. But I am hoping, back to what you said early on, if we can have this not be a word that we feel squeamish or confused about, or that we're not, if it's something that we're all saying, I think we're going to be in a better place.
Yeah. I do feel like I'm on social media all the time. You're on social media all the time. I do feel in a way that there's a bar for us that keeps getting moved, like
Yeah.
erased. Like it's the same bar that was there when I was younger in the
Yeah.
women's magazines that I read that I actually thought like would help me improve, my life. Like I would take their advice
Yeah.
seriously, and some of it was good. But I still feel that the bar is being moved. Like as we get new scientific advancements, sure, and we find out about protein and strength training, but there's a part of me that's just like, are you kidding? Like now I have to farmers carry 2/3 of my weight to be able to open a jar when I'm like, I get kind of grumpy about it. I don't know. Do
I
you
know I
have that
get it.
sense?
Oh gosh, yes.
Like we can't just calm down and relax for 5 seconds. There's a new thing all the time being put
All the
on us.
time. I said I'm
Yeah.
like whack-a-mole with things. Like I'm just, yeah, I know. I feel the same way. Every once in a while I have those days where I'm just like, nothing. Like that's it. This is it. I'm just relaxing and I'm not going to keep going down that road. Because I also see this, I also look at the days that I get like so worked up about something, and then a week later or 2 days or a day later, I can't even remember what it was. And so I know it wasn't that important. It's just in that moment, it was that important because there was nothing else more important.
Yeah.
And when I have those more important things, those life or death things, or those illnesses in a family or something really catastrophic happening, then it puts it all in perspective. I try to keep it all in perspective part. I think I lost my mom at an early age, and I always think like, I know the worst thing that can happen. So what are you getting all upset about? So I do think like that sometimes. I don't know if that's good or bad, but it does kind of keep me like, all right, lock it up.
1,000%. I also lost my mom. I was 27, but your mom had medical menopause because she had breast cancer treatment. And I didn't really realize that I've done a lot of this because my mom had she had a hysterectomy and no hormone therapy. So she
Mhm.
had, and then she had all these problems like fibromyalgia and chronic fatigue and all these things. And then she ended up getting pancreatic cancer and dying. And I didn't realize. I just feel like we're both kind of like in your book. It like touched me because you said you feel bad about it. You
I
feel
do.
like you were there for them because now that you know how alone you felt, and every woman says she feels alone. Like
Mm-hmm.
I felt alone, I was single. Every woman says it. And so our
Oh,
moms were there and we were there, that feeling. Yeah.
oh, the worst, right?
Yeah.
It's the worst. Yeah, I think about that a lot. I think that probably drives me a lot too. When people are like, why are you so driven to this conversation out of all the things that you've talked about in your life? But I think that drives it a lot.
Yeah.
For,
Okay, I want to talk to you about hormone therapy.
yeah.
Uh, what what has it like, how did you get to it? How did you get, because I know you talk about your experience with testosterone and that wasn't, so how did you just kind of arrive at your regime?
I went to a couple of different doctors after that one, and one was a doctor that said, "Look, this is going to be a game changer, but and I'm going to make sure that you can take it." And she did this little calculator, and I was like, and she gave it to me, and I let it just kind of sit in the closet. And then I wound up talking to some different people about what a menopause practitioner is, what a menopause specialist is, understanding hormone a little bit more, reading into the um, different studies obviously that were done since 2000 2002 and then beyond. And I went back to the doctor that I'm currently with now, and I said, I've got to have, like, I know I have to have this conversation. And she just sat down, like, what are you doing to yourself? Like, it was basically, I mean, now I can look at myself through her eyes. Then it was basically, like, what are you doing? You're here, you're that, you got all these things. Like this is your answer for where you want to be. You're scared, but I rightfully so scared. I think that a lot of women are very confused. And so that's how I got to it the second time around, and started doing it. And it's been good for me. It's been really good. I do estrogen, estradiol patch and progesterone, and then I also do testosterone now as a compounded cream. And it's made a difference. It's not without its flaws in terms of sometimes I have to tweak it and I have to go up a little bit or down a little bit. But now at least I know what it can do, and I know how I can feel. And so I like that a lot. And I never leave out the lifestyle stuff. If my mother were here, she might most likely would not be able to have taken it. So I do really want to continue to fight for those women too that either don't want to or can't, because there's a lot of us out there. We all come by it differently, and we need more solutions.
What did the testosterone cream do?
The
when you
testosterone
started?
cream.
Yeah, when
Oh,
you
yeah.
started taking that.
The recent one that I'm on, the one that I'm
Yeah.
on now, the cream. Yeah. So that's been helped with libido quite a bit.
Okay.
And yeah, I think that was what I went to the doctor for. And I said, like, look, I'm going to do this, and I still have no libido at all.
Mm.
And so that has made a difference for me.
Okay. And when you took the estrogen and progesterone combo, like what were the shifts? What were the changes?
My big one was hot flashes. For me, another big one was dryness. And I mean, no more dryness, and sleep for sure. Sleep changed quite a bit. I mean, sleep changed, and that I think changed everything else for me. Like I was like felt crazed all the time with no sleep. And I think that made a big difference.
It will make you feel so crazy. I flew back here and I had 3 days of no sleep for some reason. Like I have no idea why with jet lag. And
Mhm.
I became an insane person. I became enraged at people. I don't think like small little things that shouldn't matter at all are all of a sudden huge.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
yeah,
Like everything is magnified,
yeah,
right?
it's horrific. Um, okay, so what sort of hacks? Your book is full of like really cool stuff, but what are some of your favorite menopause hacks?
Gosh, I was excited to do this book because I got to interview 42 different experts in different places, and I wanted it to go beyond the doctor's office because menopause does go beyond the doctor's office, and I don't care what anyone says, like it just does. And so I wanted to have hacks when it comes to the closet, of how you feel. I wake up some days feeling so bloated and awful that I'm going to just put my sweats on and not deal with the world. And I thought, like, no, I'm not doing that anymore. I'm going to have something that feels decent enough on the days that I feel bloated and awful. So, I talk about how to do your closet, brain fog, how to deal with your house and make sure it's organized, how to get the glue off of your patch where your patch is sitting on your stomach. So I tried to make sure that there was some like fun little breakout parts in the book too of things that I've just learned over time. And sleep again was a really big one. Sex was another big chapter that we talked about in terms of encouraging conversation, in terms of understanding how you feel, how to talk to your partner. I really I made it about everything that every woman's talking to me about. Like I didn't go and pick like I think I want to do closet. I think because we got hundreds and thousands of, comments about your closet or feeling awful in clothes or what do I wear and how do I go work it. That's why I did that chapter. So I really had to guide me through the community, have the community guide what we did in each one of those chapters, which is why there's so many women's comments in there.
Um, Menopause changes you. Like it changes you, I don't know, it's changed me on sort of like a soul, like spiritual level. Like I feel
Yeah.
more sort of whole. I mean, I could write I'm still figuring it out, but I wonder how has it changed you?
Um, I think I definitely feel less afraid about age. I don't feel fear about that anymore. I think it's changed me in terms of the community that I'm surrounded with. I think it's made me realize what's important to me day to day. I think this time, time and menopause and just sort of like sorting out meaning. I think that I think it's changed how I respect my body and when it feels good and when it doesn't. And I used to like not really care. I'd be like, nah, it's fine. Drink some more caffeine and I'll wake up again. Or, I think it's I realize my body is with me all the time versus like just abuse it and hope it bounces back.
It's not going to happen. You had some interesting, you wrote about friendship, and that's one of the things that's really changed in the last couple of years for me,
Yeah,
where I've lost some friends. I've separated myself from people. It's been very painful. Can you talk about that a little bit? Because I
that's
think
why I
some
wrote
of
it.
us go through life with some frenemies and we don't know it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, my father says to me all the time, like, you just want everybody to like you. And I said, well, that was the old me. Like, I don't know that I feel like that anymore. I feel like I don't want to have to put on a mask every time that I'm talking to somebody in my life anymore. And if I have to, then that's not the right person to be talking to. And so
Mhm.
I definitely think that that has changed a lot for me. I think it's really super important. I don't want people to not like me. I don't want to be left out. I do have FOMO. All those things are, I didn't like just fix all that right away. But I do realize how precious our time is, and I'm not going to screw around with it. And spend my time being performative for people that don't really care. Because if you have to be like that, that's not somebody to be around. And it's hard. It's hard. Like I've lost friends too, and I've had to make decisions that weren't easy to make, but I definitely feel very at peace right now with that. And that's where I know it's in the right place. It's not hanging over my head all the time. I'm aware of it, but it doesn't. I'm at peace.
I like how you mentioned you're just going to have to distance yourself, because I used to think I was having a massage with an older lady, and I was telling her about a problem I had with a friend, and she said, like I said, I'm going to have to talk to her. This was just a couple of years ago. She said, you don't need to do that with friends. You can just like back up. I call it, so now I call it, the Homer in the hedge meme.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
like I'm just Homer in the hedging. Like you can just, you said, spread the time out when you're talking. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know. There's a part of me that's like, I need to learn to talk to people and tell them what the problem is. But when you get to a point where, what's the point of talking to someone who's not going to change?
I
And
know. I feel the same way. I feel the same way. I don't want to do that. It doesn't make any sense to me. And it doesn't make any sense to have some big fight either. So you got like drama in your life. I don't have time for that. And I don't want to. I don't want to do it to somebody else's. I know how bad that feels. I know how crappy that feels. I don't want somebody else to feel crappy either, I
yeah,
do think about those things.
yeah, that's exciting. Okay. Well, it's not exciting when it's happening, but
So
it is a part of our growing up. Like we're growing up again, I feel
we
like.
are. It's the second. It's the second. It is a second puberty. Yeah, it is.
You've been, you're in some important circles there. You're going to the White House. What has all that been like? Meeting lots of
Um,
celebrities.
I don't know. I feel like since we're all like working toward the same goal, I see it very differently than maybe I would have 5 years ago. I see it as like this just we're on in this together, and I think that that's really nice. That's really why I like this community, and every once in a while I'm like, oh, we did that. Like we went to the White House. That's amazing. But it was such in the moment of being there of the purposeful moment of that and understanding like I think what shocked me there was like, it's not been talked about here. Like what? And so those are like such shocking moments to me sometimes that I still can't believe it. I almost have to have it repeated a couple of different times to me because I can't believe it. But I feel like it shows how important this conversation is, and I hope that it encourages more people to pay attention. I think that's what I care about more than anything else.
Mm. What research would you like to see?
Oh gosh. I'd like there to be more options for women. I'd like there to be research to where women feel comfortable if they decide that hormone therapy is an option that they want to pursue. I think right now women have so many questions and so much confusion about that. I think that I'd like to see more research when it comes to brain health because I think that's a really scary one. I think I'd like to see different options for women that cannot do hormone therapy. And I guess I'd also like to understand supplements a little bit better and really understand some of the other different lifestyle options that we talk about a lot. And seeing how those really make changes so we can quote some of those statistics too.
You became a holistic health coach. Is that the right term? Integrative
Yeah,
wellness.
integrative. I went
Yeah,
to IIN. Yeah.
I don't want to say the wrong thing.
Super nutrition.
What is your supplement approach? Because I get asked this all the time, and people will say, "Oh, what collagen are you taking?" And I'm always nervous because people
I know.
know so much also, and so I don't know. This is what I researched, and I feel okay about it. But what are
Yeah,
your
I
sort of
feel the same way you do. And I actually just do, I do test a lot of things and switch out a lot of things. But I do I do two different shakes. One is a protein based and one is collagen. So depending on which one that I do, and the collagen one is more green and the protein one is obviously more protein, blueberries. And so those are like the two different things I go between in the mornings or like in the early afternoon. And magnesium is one for bedtime. Dr. Daryl Joffrey has a magnesium. He has a line called Alchemind that I really like. And I just do like this little scoop of it, and it's like a shot of, it's like that big. It's like a shot of magnesium and water, and just take it fast instead of trying to drink 8 ounces before bed and then have to pee all night. And then vitamin D is also one that I pay attention to because I had really, really low levels of vitamin D a few years ago and I had compounded vitamin D. I've gotten off of that now, but I still have to keep that as part of my, what I'm paying attention to. I do a liquid base and it's from my local health food store, but it's a liquid drop that I put inside the shake. So I try to get most of that in there. Fiber is something that I use on and off if I'm really, if I need it. but I do that on and off because I'm not a real pill person. And so I'd rather have everything be in powders and formulas or liquid. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Let me see. We'll end with what words of hope do you have for someone who, because you know that feeling where it's like nothing's right and I don't know where to turn.
Oh, my words of hope. I hope that this next generation, or even these women who are 30 years old right now, are hearing messages like this and feeling really good about what's to come. I really, really do. I feel like, and I also want them to be realistic too. Like, I'm not Pollyanna that like, everything's going to be great. You're going to turn 50 and you're going to love it. And then you're going to have a frozen shoulder and it's going to really, I want them to be realistic and optimistic. So, and then I guess I feel really encouraged by this conversation because I feel like the more women that feel good with this conversation, we're helping, a next person in their community and the next person and their friends, the people they work with. So I do think that every single person matters in this because I think that, there's 5 to 10 people around all of them that are going to hear the message too.
Okay. How is your frozen shoulder, by the way? I live in terror, frozen shoulder. I live in absolute terror.
Awful.
Is it not recovered?
No, it's not. It's like I can get to here
man.
and that's it. I can't go back this way because I couldn't like put my arm around you on this side, but I'm great here.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
the craziest thing. It's just really weird.
How deep are you into it? How long has this been going on?
It's been a few months. I really need to go see somebody, but of course I'm like, I'm going to fix it with my exercises. So I do stretch it out quite a bit, but I think I need to go talk to somebody about it now in a little more serious way because it's the reason I hurt my back when I was in the gym a few months ago. And so I was like, okay, now you got to start, practicing what you preach. So that's what I'll be doing. Hopefully.
Do you have any advice to women who are terrified about it? Like, I'm so terrified that I'm always just like,
oh, I wouldn't be terrified about it. No. But I would keep up the workouts and the exercise and the stretching. Like the stretching is big. I regret that I, took it for granted.
Well, it's wild that this has been going on and it's only in the last couple of years where
isn't that crazy?
It's being talked about as it's affecting us, right?
Yeah.
And then, but anyone who works with women our age will always say it's women who are menopausal and perimenopausal that frozen shoulder is an issue.
Right.
Okay, well, good luck with that. Sending love to your shoulder.
Thank you. It's so good to see you.
You too. Thank you so much for that.
Hotflash Inc. was created and is hosted by Ann Marie McQueen, produced and edited by Sonia Mack. The information contained in this podcast is intended for informational purposes only and is not intended for the purpose of diagnosing, treating, curing, or preventing any disease. Before using any products referenced on the podcast, consult with your healthcare provider, read all labels, and heed all directions and cautions that accompany the products. Information received through the podcast should not be used in place of a consultation or advice from a healthcare provider. If you suspect you have a medical problem, i.e. menopause or anything else, or any healthcare questions, please promptly see your healthcare provider. This podcast, including Ann Marie McQueen and any producers or editors, disclaim any responsibility from any possible adverse effects from the use of any information contained herein. Opinions of guests on this podcast are their own, and the podcast does not endorse or accept responsibility for statements made by guests. This podcast does not make any representations or warranties about a guest's qualifications or credibility. This podcast may contain paid endorsements and advertisements for products or services. Individuals on this podcast may have direct or indirect financial interest in products or services referred to herein. This podcast is owned by Hotflash Inc. Media.